All right, achromatic is our next color scheme. This is an artwork that uses black and white, so no colors from the color wheel. And A means no or none, and chroma means color. So achromatic is how you can remember that this is an artwork with no color. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use our black and white paint to create this small little value scale. So in the next slide, I will show you how to create this from light to dark, and you'll see I've already got them numbered, which one we're going to do first. We'll do the black first, then we'll make dark gray second, and then we'll start over. Then we'll start with white, and then we'll make our light gray, and then we'll create our middle gray. And so we don't want to create middle gray from black, because black, it takes so much white to change the black that it's going to be much faster for us to start with white and then create that middle gray instead of working the other way, that's why it's numbered the way that it is. All right, you would want to use an achromatic color scheme in your artwork if you were trying to give that kind of peaceful or somber feeling about your artwork, a very pensive, thoughtful moment. That's when I usually use black and white. Okay, so I'm going to get a scoop of white, and remember, I don't want to dip more than halfway up the bristles, so I want to get a couple of scoops and just put a little bit here on my palette. I don't have a whole lot to paint, so I don't need a lot. Okay, and then I'm going to get a little bit of black. And gray can be spelled G-R-E-Y or G-R-A-Y. I always spelled it E-Y, so they're both correct, in case if you were wondering. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I guess I will start with black. So I'm going to do black first. Okay. All right, and that's just straight from my palette. And then now I need to make a dark gray. So if you remember from our ratios, from our notes, and you can put this down here, you can put it up here. We need 1 part black and then about a half a part of white. So half the amount of black that you use is what we want to, is the amount of white we want to put in here. We want to make sure we mix that really well so there's no white still left. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so that was 1 part black and then half a part of white. And what I can do from here is I can take another scoop of white and try to mix it, but I think it's going to end up requiring a lot, so I'm not going to do that. So what I'll do instead is I will clean my brush, and then I'll start from the other end of the scale. All right, so I'm going to make sure my brush is mostly dry. So now I want to start with whites, and I actually do, even though the paper is white, we still want to paint it with white paint because white paint is going to look different than the white paper. All right, and then I can take that, so I'm going to take 1 part of white, and I think the note said 1/4 of a part of black, so we're talking like a speck, because I didn't, my one part was not very big, was not a very big scoop. Okay, so make sure that's really dry. We don't want our paint to be watered down. Okay, and then we want to get just a small speck of black, like, I don't even know if that is showing up. It is super tiny. Very tiny amount. Alright, and we want to mix that really well. Alright, that's exactly the color that I was looking for, a very light gray. Alright, it's going to be a lot easier for us to get to middle gray by adding another speck of black. So we need something in between the dark and the light. We need something right in the middle. And I could take this gray, the dark gray, actually we'll mix across the two. Okay, so I'm kind of using both sides of my brush because there is still white paint in there, and so I do want to make sure that that mixes evenly. So I am using both sides of my brush. All right, I like the way that looks. It could probably be a little bit darker. So I'm kind of testing it. It's not quite in the middle. It still seems like it's light. It's not directly in between. All right, so I'm just working these two colors together. There's still white in my brush, or the lighter gray that's still in my brush, so every now and then that is coming through. Let's see. All right, I think that looks more like a color that would be in between the two. All right, and then looking at this is probably a little bit dark. I could probably use a little bit lighter of a color. I can mix directly on here if I need to try to make that a tiny bit lighter. All right, and that is my Achromatic color scheme scale. Okay, Tint, T-I-N-T, not T-E-N-T. So the tent that you sleep in for camping, that's a T-E-N-T. This is tint for painting, T-I-N-T, and this is white added to a hue. And this makes a hue less intense, less saturated, and it also makes the hue lighter. Some of them have names and some of them do not. So for example, red and when we add red and white together, that's going to create pink, and which has a name. But then when we if you were to mix yellow with white, that doesn't really have a color's name that we all know. Like at the paint store, it's going to have a name, but a common name that we have all grown up with, we're not going to have that. So we just call that light yellow. Shade, this is when black is added to a hue. It's a way of making a color less intense or less saturated. It's also one way to make a hue darker. It's not the only way. Like I said before, some of them have names, like blue and black make navy, and green and black make a dark green, or sometimes that's called hunter green. And then sometimes they don't have a name, right? They're just like dark yellow, okay? All right, monochromatic color schemes. These are tints and shades of a single hue. So mono means one, chroma means color, and so therefore we've got an artwork based on one color. And then the tints and shades, that's where we're adding the white to the hue, to that one hue, and then we can create shades by adding black to that one hue. And so the entire artwork is based off of only one color. And an artist would want to do this when they are trying to get their viewer to feel a certain way, or if the artist themselves is feeling a certain way and they want to portray that feeling through that one single color, it's going to make it more, give it more emphasis by using that one specific color.
So for example, I'm going to show you some some of Picasso's work when he was going through his blue period. And some of you maybe associate the color of blue as like calm or peaceful, but also blue can be sad and depressing, depending on how you look at it. How what you were taught growing up. And Picasso also went through a period of time called the Rose period, where he was using more of warm colors to create his artworks after he came out of the Blue Depression period. Okay, so here are some examples from Picasso's blue period, and you can see how very sad these figures look. This was a self-portrait he did, and you can see he doesn't look very happy. All these people look very sad and depressed and lonely, and like going through heartbreak or depression. So if you wanted to have your viewer feel sad and depressed and lonely, you would not want to use yellow, right? Because yellow we associate with happiness and like the smiley face. We would want to use dark and sad colors like violet or green or blue. All right, when you're ready to move on to your monochromatic color scheme painting, you can choose any of your 3 colors, blue, red, or yellow. I'm going to demonstrate with red, just like the notes, just so you can have a better idea of what it should look like, but you may choose any color, as long as it turns out correctly. So I'm going to use my brush, not dipping more than halfway up, to add several scoops, several parts of red on here, because I've got to do some different mixtures to get all of this painted. So a few scoops of your color. And I still have the black and the white on my palette, so I don't need to add any more. Just need to make sure I have a place to mix. So I can either mix in the well, in the side well, or in the flat area. And once this dries, I can paint on top of this as well and remix in that area. So I may have to wait till tomorrow to do that, but I can. All right, so with my bristles a little more dry, I'm going to paint in the middle, my hue, my color, my red. Okay, and then I can either go left or right, it doesn't matter, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of this and kind of move it to the side of the palette. So same well, but just over to the side. These circles aren't very big, so I don't need a lot of paint. So I've got some red right here, and I will start with a little bit of black, just a very small dot. I don't want to darken this color too much, just want to darken it a little bit. Should make kind of a maroon color. So we want this color that's next to red to definitely be different. If it still looks red, then you don't have enough black. So it just should be a slightly darker red, like a maroon color. All right, and I kind of ran out of that color, so now I've got to add some more red. And now I want to add even more black because I'm trying to get to the darker side of that value scale. So adding more black. I want it to be a very, very dark red, like almost black looking. But still, we should still be able to see a hint of red in it. Let's see how that looks. I think it could go a little bit darker. Okay. Okay, then we want to clean our brush.
And then we want to start with fresh red paint, and then we're going to mix it with a little bit of white so that it is a kind of dark to medium pink. Okay, so we want to start with fresh red, no black. So we can't start adding white to this because it has black in it. And black and white with a hue is called a tone, and we're not making tones. We're making tints and shades. So we just made our shades of red. Now we're going to make our tints of red by adding only hue with white. Okay, so I've got my hue. So I've got a new little, so all in this, mixing it all in the same well because I have enough room. I'm gonna get a small scoop of white. And mix it in my red so that I get kind of a medium pink, medium to dark pink color. Okay, and then we're gonna get, actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this that's already on my brush, this pink that's already on my brush, and I'm going to mix it. I'm gonna just mix it over here. All right, that's still pretty dark. I want that to be much lighter. Okay, so that was not the best idea, and that's okay, right? Everything is all about learning. So I'm gonna clean my brush, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just directly add white, pure white, straight to my wet paint. So while this is still wet, it's okay. So I'm gonna take a good chunk of white paint. I'm just gonna mix it directly on here, and hopefully I'll get the color that I'm looking for. There we go. That was more of the color I was looking for, something much lighter. There we go. Right, and that is your monochromatic color scheme. Analogous color schemes. So I've got a little pronunciation, analogous. These are colors next to each other on the color wheel, and they create harmonious, serene, and comfortable feelings in artworks. So make sure you're writing everything that is underlined, don't forget. Okay, so this is a warm analogous color scheme, and these give a warm feeling when used together in artwork. They remind us of sun or fire, and you would want to use this color scheme if you were trying to create this summer feeling within the artwork, or maybe remind you of like a desert, but something very warm. Okay, so on the notes, it had the letters inside the circles. Sorry about that. It really should be below, because otherwise you're going to end up painting over it and covering it up. So if you already wrote it inside, that's okay. But if you would, go ahead and write it underneath as well, so that I will be able to see it when I go to grade it. All right, so we've got some circles to paint from the container. We need to, if your orange is still wet from the day before, then you can use your orange to paint in your orange, and you can also use that orange to hopefully make your red orange and your yellow orange if you have enough. If not, you're gonna have to remake it. Okay, so we want to paint our colors that don't need any mixing.
Don't forget to reshape your brush. All right, so I've got a little bit, so I'm going to take my red, a little bit of orange. Still looks the same, so I need more orange. All right, that looks more red-orange now. Could still use a little bit more. I probably should have painted the orange one first, but that's okay. That way I could see the color that I'm trying to find in between. Okay, so I still feel like that is too dark, too red, not too dark, I'm sorry, that was the wrong word, too dark, too red. So I'm gonna see if I can't, I'm gonna go ahead and mix some more orange. I don't have enough on here to do anything with. I do want to clean my brush before I put it in my yellow. I don't want to contaminate my yellow with other colors. All right, so remember we're gonna do 2 scoops yellow and then 1 scoop of red. And then make sure you're drying your brush a little bit in between. If you had a towel, that would probably be a lot easier. There's a towel. Okay. And then 1 part. Make sure that's even. All right, 1 part red. Remember, just mix with the tip of your bristles. Make sure you mix all the color. Let's see. Make sure your orange is not too red or too yellow. Sometimes students get it too yellow and then it ends up too light looking, almost like that school bus color. So we don't want that. Okay, so now I'm going to take what's left over on my brush and layer it over here to make that a little bit less red, so we get something more in between. And now that I see that this is drying, it looks a little bit watery, so I am going to add another layer on top of that, because it looks a little thin, a little see-through. Okay, I did dry off my brush. All right, for yellow-orange, we do want to start with our yellow first. And we can take the easy way out a little bit and just mix directly on. We don't always have to mix on the palette. You can mix, in this case, you could mix on the paper, but you don't always want to mix on the paper. You would want to mostly mix on your palette, but just to do these little charts and these little circles, it's fine. All right, so then we're going to take a little bit of this, and we'll just mix it directly. So I want to create something somewhere between orange and that yellow. All right, I'm I'm wondering if this orange is too yellow. I'm sorry, it looked a little red. All right, I just want to make sure that there's a good transition from one color to the next to the next. All right, and then those are my warm colors. So these are going to be your intermediate colors. There's your red orange and your yellow orange, so that when you get to the color wheel, you'll remember how to make those colors. Don't forget, if you're changing pages, you can tear out those pages and let them dry, or you're going to need to get a blow dryer and blow dry the page before you turn it, because otherwise those pages are going to stick together and rip, and then you're going to have to start over. So do make sure you are letting it dry in between.
All right, so the opposite of warm would be the cool colors, and these can have a cold effect when used in an artwork. They remind us of the winter, water, sky, and grass, and this, you would want to use these together in artwork when you were, if you were trying to do an artwork possibly about spring or like a sunset. You would want to use these colors. They're very harmonious. They all go to, meaning they all blend, they go together well. They're not opposite, so they're not creating this contrast or this vibrant effect. They're very serene and calm colors.
On this last color scheme, before we get to the color wheel, these cool colors, I am not going to be walking you through how to make these colors. I want you to take the knowledge of what we have previously learned in creating these colors from the color wheel to create blue-violet all by yourself and blue-green all by yourself. Understanding that blue-violet should not be too blue or too violet, but somewhere in between, kind of a blueberry color. And then the blue-green should not be too blue or too green, but something in the middle, kind of that dark turquoisey color. And I want you to do that all on your own.
All right, so we are going to make a color wheel, and we're going to recreate all the colors of the color wheel one last time. This needs to go on one full page in your sketchbook. It should not go in a little corner. It should be on a page all by itself. And the easiest way to do it is to draw two triangles, one that goes up and one that points down. It does end up creating kind of like the Star of David symbol. It has nothing to do with that. That's just what it ends up creating because it's the easiest way to create this color wheel and to try to get these colors equally apart from each other. So on your triangle that's going up, you are going to paint your red, your blue, and your yellow. And then I want you to label them with a P because that means primary. And then on the second triangle, the triangle pointing down, those are going to be your secondary colors. That's what the S stands for, secondary. And make sure you put them in the correct place. So you want to make sure that orange falls between the red and yellow primary colors. You want to make sure the green is falling in between the blue and yellow primary colors. And then we want to make sure that the violet is in between the red and green. The red and blue. And then once you make each of those secondary colors, you're going to mix it with the primary color to create your intermediate colors. So you will need to make each and every one of these, and then you will photograph each page of your notes and upload it, or you will video your notes and upload your notes that way, and video them very, very slowly, one kind of page and section at a time, so that I can see that you got everything.